and welcome back to another Phoenix Lights Petroglyphs in the Sky UFO show. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope you guys are doing great. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk about like fleet UFO lights in the sky. So it's going to be a great show. So make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you find us on YouTube, the Phoenix Lights Petroglyphs in the Sky. Make sure you subscribe to that for new upcoming shows and UFO videos. Okay, how's everybody doing today? Welcome back to the show. My name is Jeff Woolwine. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been seeing these UFO lights in the sky ever since I was a kid. That's what made me go on a hunt, on a quest to find out exactly what's going on here in the Valley of the Sun. And I successfully matched the 1,000-year-old Hohokam petroglyphs carvings on the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona to these lights and these UFOs that we see in the skies today. So, in saying that, this is actually the Phoenix Lights and the UFOs that's been visiting this valley is nothing new. This has been going on for thousands of years. And the first people to actually record and see these lights were called the Hohokam Indians. Now, Hohokam is a Pima name for the people who are gone, the people who are missing, because we don't know what happened to these people. The archaeologist wants us to believe, well, they simply migrated somewhere else, but we can't find any trace on where they went. This is strange to me. So, and remember all my sayings, right? If something doesn't make sense, then it's not credible, right? Right. And this explanation on where the Hohokam people went, they simply migrated out somewhere else because of drought or because it got too hot or whatever the case may be, and they went somewhere else, and we just can't find them. This does not make sense to me. So, where did they go? I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, in studying these Phoenix Lights, seeing them on a regular basis, and seeing the day sightings and going out there on the mountain. Now, the source of these lights is South Mountain, formerly known as Mount Sepoa by the Hohokam Indians, meaning the people who are gone, the people who got taken away, right? And so the name Hohokam is a Pima name for the people who got taken away because we don't know what happened to these people. Now, the carvings up there on these mountains, especially South Mountain, are prehistoric photographs of what had taken place here in this valley. So the archaeologist wants us to believe, well, you know, the Hohokam people was just a simple, peace-loving people who never went to war with anybody and who were masters of their water canal systems, and they lived here for 1,000 years and they just simply vanished. They walked away, leaving all their belongings behind. Right? That's something else that doesn't make sense and it's not credible, correct? Because why would you leave? Why would you migrate somewhere else to a new property, to a cooler area, part of the land, and not take your belongings with you, right? This makes no sense. But the archaeologist wants us to believe this. My God, right? So lots of stuff in this just doesn't make sense. So that's what I did. I went on a hunt. I went on a quest. It started for me, like I said, I've been seeing them in the sky ever since I was a kid, playing catch football with my dad and seeing an orb in the sky or seeing a light in the sky. And when I was in the 5th grade and going to my grade school and talking to a friend of mine who happened to be a Native American boy, right? And I asked him, dude, did you see that light last night? And he's like, yeah. He goes, my ancestors say that those lights, those things live in the mountains over there. And he pointed to the west area of Phoenix, to the White Tank Mountains. He goes, they're coming and going from over there, right? They live over there, right? Well, you know, being a kid, you're blowing them off, right? Cool, whatever. go on with your activities. But later on in life, you're still seeing them, and you're like, dude, we've got to get down to the bottom of this. So I did what nobody else did. I hunted these lights down. I just didn't simply go out there and sky watch and, and make a guess on what these things were. No, I went on a hunt. I went on a quest, all right, to find out what the hell was actually going on in our city. Started off in 2004. I was seeing these lights on the east side of Phoenix, Arizona, in Mesa, Arizona. And they were going towards the mountain. Well, to make a long story short, I was videotaping these lights all summer of 2004. I made the news a few times there, and the end result was that we're all seeing flares. And that was just impossible because, everybody, common sense tells you that flares don't stay in a triangle formation. They burn out quick. They don't stay in formation. They fly away from each other. The airplanes are dropping these things out. And, the whole flare thing just, common sense, right? If something doesn't make sense, it's not credible, correct? Right. If you can't prove all this, dude, then why are you going to go on television and say these are flares when you haven't done your investigation? Why would you go on television, or why would you write a book and make movies saying that a craft or spaceships are going over the city of Phoenix when there's really no evidence of this, right? Why would you do that? Why would you say, all this stuff if you didn't have an agenda on your mind, which is some of these people are trying to make money and get famous and blah, 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 all that to do, and not do their investigations, right? That's what the whole thing of this petroglyphs in the sky is all about, right? It's like years. It's 15 years of research on South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona, understanding the petroglyphs, watching these things on a regular basis, coming and going from a mountain out there, and trying to make sense out of all of this. And so, I always go ahead of myself. And so in 2004, they say we're seeing flares. I'm studying all this stuff. I'm doing lots of study on UFOs. And I learned that, it seemed like these UFOs were hanging around, like to hang around mountains. And that's exactly like what was going on with me, because I saw these lights heading towards South Mountain. So in 2005, I moved to the mountain, right? No one has ever done this before. I hunted these things down, man. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So the lights were telling me to go to the mountain, and I went to the mountain, and now I'm getting day shots, and these things are coming and going from South Mountain. And so I go out there and I find these petroglyphs, right? Because I see this object come down, all right? I videotaped it, I filmed it. This object came out of the sky, and it looked like it landed on South Mountain. So what do? I go out there and I'm looking for, a crop circle, right? I'm looking for some kind of debris or some kind of evidence, right? That a spaceship went down to this area, because that's what I saw. That's what I recorded. So that's what I'm expecting, because everybody's telling me this is what they are. They're spaceships. They're crafts. An alleged craft went over the city of Phoenix March 13th, 1997. Where's the video? And again, something doesn't make sense. It's not credible, right? Those of you who have been following me all these years know how I feel about all of that, because I was out there. It's my home, dude. I'm not from out of town saying that lights went over the city with no evidence, no facts. I'm not coming on television, and I'm not doing this saying a spaceship went over Phoenix when I have no proof of this. I'm telling you the proof. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what I discovered in my, 20 years of research out there. So I was led to believe, like everybody else, that a spaceship went over the city of Phoenix, But the only evidence we have of that, March 13th, 1997, are lights on the west side of South Mountain. That's it. Nothing going over the city of Phoenix at all. And I was out there that night, dude. I lived there. I partied there. I was outside that night, pretty much the whole night. And I was in the flight path, the alleged flight path of this thing, and I didn't see. I'm a witness, dude. I didn't see nothing. Right? I was there. Nothing happened. Why didn't I see it? Because it was over there on the far west of the valley. This is the reason why we don't have 4 videos of the lights. Only 4 people filmed those lights. Out of thousands of witnesses, only 4 people? And one of them, which is Tom King. Now, he was ready for the lights. Why? Because he was making the news and seeing the lights on a regular basis. And he was seeing these lights days and weeks before March 13th, 1997. So he was ready for it. He wanted something to happen. His camera was ready. And he was one of the ones that caught what exactly happened that night with his camera. Now, he was on a quest, man. He's hunting them down, dude. And so you would think that if anything flew over the city of Phoenix, Tom King would have been on it, don't you think? Because he was ready for it. But yet all he caught was what everybody else caught, were lights on the west side of South Mountain. You see where I'm going with this? I mean, we have to look at the evidence. We have to look at what we can prove here. We have to look at the evidence. And the evidence will suggest, because there is no proof of anything going over the city of Phoenix that night. We had a lot of people trying to get on television. We have people trying to selling movie tickets. I mean, this whole Phoenix Lights epidemic, right, has gotten way out of hand. Blown way out of proportion on what exactly happened that night. Now there's a Hollywood movie saying that there are people that got abducted and they're trying to make it a true story. And my God, dude. I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is part of the cover-up. You know, these people that have these Harkin movie theaters every year, trying to sell the public that a spaceship went over the city of Phoenix. That's disinformation. You're part of the problem. You're telling people false things that you can't prove. Now, why would you do that? Why would you go on television, on the news, on cable shows and radio shows and start talking about something you have no idea what you're talking about? And see, this is where my work differs from all of them. All right. So what? This is 2005. Okay. When I'm out there and I'm watching them, I live like a mile away from South Mountain on the east side. And that's important. It's the east side of South Mountain because, all the legends and myths and Native American folklore, if you will, is saying that east is sacred. And it is, right? Because that's the morning sunrise. And it's also where these things are coming and going from, right? Coincidence, right? So the East is very important. Very important, not only in archaeology, not only in ufology, not only in studying UFOs, all this, stuff. East, man, that's it. That's one of the keys, is the East. The morning sun. Solstice, equinox, we'll get to that probably later. And so 2005, after they tell me I'm seeing flares, I go to the mountain and I'm seeing them coming and going. In the daytime, I'm seeing what these things really look like. And I'm still thinking spaceships, crafts, right? I'm thinking, well, that light must be a spaceship, right? There's like a little guy inside that little light in there up there, right? That's what everybody's led to believe. So that's what I'm thinking, right? So I see this thing come down, and I go out there, and I find these petroglyphs, right, on where the object came down at on South Mountain, and I see these petroglyphs, and what? I see a spiral. I see a stick figure man looking up at the exact same object that I had filmed the day before. Now, how's that possible, right? Now, prior to this, I remember seeing a shaman from the Pueblo Indian Art Museum. I always talk about this. My story hasn't changed in 20 years, man. Go back. Look at everything, right? Search my name on the internet. I've been saying the same stories for years, man. Why? Because it's credible. It's true. And here it is. So I remember seeing Dave from the Pueblo Indian Art Museum right before I went out there to film the lights in 2004. And he was talking about the petroglyphs on South Mountain. And he said that, this one person turned around and he was saying, you know what? That stick figure man looks like he's looking up at something above him. Dave quickly turned around and said, yes, that is part of the interpretations out here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things where the places took place at, where the events took place at, on the rocks here. So I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, what? What did he just say? And it's a stick figure man looking up at a circle thing. An orb, right? And this is 2004 when I first saw it. And some of these other, ufologists out here or people in Phoenix who have by now, been making the news, filming day sightings, and talking about the 1997 Phoenix lights, but no one is talking about these petroglyphs out here. No one's talking about Phoenix, Arizona's history. Wait a minute. We have strange markings on the rocks out there, and now we have strange lights in the sky. Unbelievable how these things were overlooked, correct? The petroglyphs on the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona has been overlooked or, covered up. Yes, covered up for 80 years. This is why. Because these carvings out here on the mountains of Phoenix are Arizona's true past history. They're prehistoric photographs of daily lives of the Hohokam Indians. And I tell you what, once you understand those petroglyphs, it writes a completely different story, history of where Phoenix rose out from the ashes of the former civilization. It tells what happened to this place before we came along and started living on their land once again. And it just doesn't talk about peace-loving people making pots, building canals, and then taking off because, what, it got too hot? I tell you what, man, I've been an archaeologist, an amateur archaeologist, 10 years before I became a ufologist. And I can spot something out of place a mile away. I'm very good at what I do. So when I'm out there hiking on South Mountain, and I'm finding, sacrificing altars, and I'm finding tombs that have been buried up there on South Mountain, and I'm seeing the petroglyphs, and I'm understanding the petroglyphs because once I got to South Mountain, I remembered Dave, and I called him up. I really didn't tell him what I was doing. I told him I was making a documentary on the petroglyphs, and could you please, teach me the petroglyphs up there on the mountain? And we did. Went up there for a few hours, talked about spirals, talked about these things coming down from the sky, up from the ground, teaching these people how to live, doorways into the underworld, and yes, even giants. Not once ever did he say spaceships or crafts. He was talking about spirits of the earth and sky. because that's what these natives considered these things in the sky were spirits, or some would say gods, right? So I'm out there and I'm studying the petroglyphs. I'm understanding the story, and when you look at these things, when you look at the petroglyphs, and you just don't look at it like, well, they're just out there, graffiti, or just trying to tell a story of hunting and gathering and stuff. When you take it literally, when you look at these photographs up there and you take it literally on this is what they saw, and then you go back and you look at some of these UFO sightings, not only in Phoenix but around the world. And then, right, then you take it a step further and you start investigating, some of these ancient scrolls, like maybe, like from the Anunnaki or the Sumerian carvings and some of these other sacred texts that we read and we read, right? We read the same stories in these 3,000 to 8,000 year old manuscripts or rock carvings, if you will. And then you go out to some of these mountains here in the United States, well, just not the United States, but around the world, you can see the photographs of what these ancient texts are talking about. And again, we are connecting the dots. This is where the credibility lies. This is where stuff starts to make sense, right? Because we have manuscripts or we have clay tablets from thousands of years ago talking about what we are seeing in the skies today. And then we go out to some of these sacred mountains and we see the exact same carving art, or I call them photographs, man. They didn't have, cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record something significant for people to, for their generations to live on and to tell the story for years to come. And a lot of these petroglyphs have been recarved from generations because they want that story to survive. It's not just a legend. It's not just a myth, but it's literal. It's real stuff. It's what they saw. It's what they went through. And when they're out there carving giants, you really have to make yourself wonder, oh my God, really? And then you go out there and you see a lot of evidence on South Mountain that only somebody very big could have constructed this. I'm talking like walls, like huge walls that have been blown up by the CCC. That's prior episodes. Blown up by the CCC, blown up in history, covered up, removed. But the evidence is still there. Back to my point here, I'm an amateur archaeologist, so I can see this stuff. I know when something is man-made and when something is natural. And when I see this huge wall, I mean, stuff like, like Egypt, right? These huge, massive bricks, these stone carved out boulders in the shapes of bricks stacked up on top of one another. And it's on top of this man-made hill that has been partially buried. And then you can see it when you're down there in Phoenix and you look up at South Mountain. You could have seen that. You saw that. You saw that huge wall that's been buried. You saw that until the CCC came around before World War II, and they blew that up. They blew that wall up. They couldn't remove it because, they couldn't even get their machinery up there because it's on a hill. It's on a huge hill. And then there's another hill burying it, right? There's a natural hill where the huge wall was made at. And I'm thinking the Holocaust did that. The Holocaust made a second hill, okay, to conceal that wall because I believe there's a tomb in there. That's one of the reasons why they did that. There's something buried there. So They made a man-made mountain, if you will, a huge man-made dirt hill, and they buried half of that wall up. But you could still see the other side from the city of Phoenix looking at South Mountain. So the CCC came in there and they couldn't remove it because they couldn't get their machinery up there. So they blew it up. So that's telling me if they can't even get their machinery up there, their cranes and their forklifts and all their, heavy equipment to move these boulders, then how did the Hohokam Indians do that? How were they able to get these huge, bricks up there, these huge stone blocks, and make a wall up there? If not help from somebody very big and very powerful. And yet the petroglyphs out there talk about these giants. Matter of fact, there's even a legend, a so-called legend, on the Superstition Mountains. Now, a lot of people think, well, they're the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. That's the whole, thing on the Superstition Mountains. But according to the natives, man, that mountain goes deeper than that. And I'm going to tell you, here's the story. This is what they say. They said at the time, there were bloodthirsty giants roaming this land. And they fed off humans. And some of these giants took the wives of men. We all know what story that consists of, right? So the Great Spirit made the flood. And so the waters are coming. It's raining, water's coming up from the ground, water's coming down from the sky. It's chaos. There's water flooding the world. And a lead giant told his people, go up on this hill, right? Go up on this hill to the west. So all these giants did. They went up on this huge hill, right? This mile-long hill, okay? These giants went up on the top of it. And the lead giant used his powers to raise this hill up. But the water kept coming. The lead giant used his powers to raise this mountain up again. But the water kept coming. He raised this hill. Now, this is a huge mountain. Right? And the giants are still up there. The water kept coming. And he's been doing this for hours, right? And he's been moving this hill up for hours, trying to outbeat the water because he's thinking, the water's got to stop eventually, dude. So I'm going to keep using my powers. I'm going to save my people, man. This water's got to stop eventually. But it didn't. The water never stopped. The water kept coming. And he was exhausted. So in his last bit of strength, because he didn't want his people to drown, he immortalized them by turning them all to stone. And when he did that, that's when the waters stopped. And to this day, you can look upon the Superstition Mountains, and you can see the water line on where the Great Flood had stopped. And if you look above that water line, you can still see those giants still turned to stone on top of the Superstition Mountains. There's even a giant that was turned to stone on Camelback Mountain. There were giants that were turned to stone all over, the world. There's always this turned to stone giant myth somewhere. But what if it isn't a myth? What if that really took place, right? And yet we go up on South Mountain and we see the evidence of these giants. Man, I tell you what, I've seen some amazing things out there on South Mountain. And I took photographs and I brought them down. I brought all this information down from the mountain, and I present my evidence to you in my shows, my TV shows that I do, the book that I'm about to talk about. And I don't make any money from this, right? It's not about money. It's about, look at what I've discovered here. Look at what I found, okay? And just take all this information in, examine it, look at what I'm saying here, and you be the judge, right? Don't just believe me. Go out there and look at it for yourself. Look, I was new to all of this, right? Hunting them down, climbing the mountain, understanding the petroglyphs, and then going to the city library, the Burton Bar Phoenix, Arizona library, and finding out the history of South Mountain, and there it is, right? Everything that I was finding like that first year, I'm finding tombs, I'm finding sacrificing altars, I'm finding evidence of giants, I'm seeing carvings that tell a completely different story on who the Hohokam people were. I'm just seeing all this stuff, but and the archaeologist isn't helping. I actually went on the news with the archaeologist when my discovery first came out in 2005. And the city archaeologist is, well, I'm up there, And here's the thing, in his book, he draws the petroglyphs. He wants you to only see what he wants you to see. But when you go out there and you see the petroglyph that he drew, it's completely different. Or he says the petroglyphs are here when they're a few miles down the road. And so he was, trying to blow my whole, evidence and proof and about these UFOs connected to the petroglyphs, and he's trying to shoot it down, but you can't, and because some of my stuff was making the news in 2005, 6, and 7, and every time that the news would air my UFO sightings, they would always have a video analyst, check it out to make sure I'm not hoaxing this stuff, right? I even had the producer come to my apartment just to make sure I didn't have a computer, and I didn't at the time, in my place, making up all this stuff, man. He secretly came by without notice. He was trying to, I guess catch me or something with a computer in my house, and I didn't. I didn't have a computer. All I had, to be honest with you, was a little studio on the second-story apartment facing South Mountain a mile away. And all I had was a chair, my window facing the mountain, and a video camera. And that was it. I didn't have any computers. I didn't have any other technology. It was a high-8 video camera. It was my eyesight. It was my tripod, my chair, and me going out there and hiking on South Mountain, taking photographs of stuff that I'm filming in the sky above that mountain. That's why it's called Petroglyphs in the Sky. Is it called Spaceships in the Sky? No, it's called Petroglyphs in the Sky, right? When my story hit, in 2005, it was big. I wrote an article for UFO Magazine about this. I did the pilot for the UFO Hunter Show and Ancient Aliens TV series. And when the UFO Hunter Show aired on the History Channel in 2007, I did the show then. And, by then, I had more evidence, and more proof, more investigating, like, people should do. You just shouldn't just take some guy's word that, this is what it is. You have to go out there and investigate it for yourself, man. That's exactly what I did. And when I did, I completed it a 180 on this, man. I'm like, wait a minute. And I was upset with the History Channel, too. I was upset with UFO Hunter Show because I'm telling them, look, these are not spaceships. I have discovered another creature, another living entity. This is what these things are. I'm filming flying snakes in the sky. I am filming things that are changing shape in the sky. This is not technology. This is not spaceships. This is not a craft. Well, Jeff, you're filming some bizarre stuff. The people aren't ready for it. That just really upset me when he said that to me. He goes, if you're going to talk about these things, you must say crafts. Because the people aren't ready for this information. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? You better get ready for it because it's here. This is what's here. I don't know if they just didn't want to give me the credit for discovering this type of life form or what. But I was the first one to actually come out and prove. There's been a lot of people out, saying, these things are, living entities. These things are light beings, blah, blah. But no one has proved it before. No one has set out on a journey, on a quest for many, many years, and spent half his life out there on the mountain videotaping these things and actually seeing them up close, and watching them, and then making the connection. Look at these are not crafts. These things are alive. And so when you see 5 lights out there in the sky, you're seeing 5 living entities. Well, I could go on, and I have been in all my other shows, and I apologize for that. But it's such a passion, right? And once you see it, and then you go out there and you see all the petroglyphs, the same thing that you saw in the sky, and then you see the evidence of what history is telling you on these Phoenix lights and on these things in the sky, and where Phoenix actually came from. It totally rewrites history. It's not what the archaeologist wants you to believe. This is something completely different. And in my opinion, this is biblical stuff. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about, reading the stuff in these scrolls and witnessing these things in the sky for yourself. Like Exodus, the book of Numbers, all that stuff, Elijah's fiery chariot, Ezekiel's wheel, all that stuff, man. Even when it comes down to, the guys with the wings, well, isn't the Anunnaki, wasn't they carved with wings on them, right? But yet, this Bible, this book here talks about these beings and wings. And I believe Ezekiel, actually had a vision of a guy with wings, come on now. And then we have the carvings just that is where the credibility is lying at, right? That's where all this stuff is credible at. Well, I could go on. I'm just trying to make a point here. So we have to look at what we can prove. We have to investigate things. You just can't take other people's word for it. You have to go out there and investigate it, right? And, once I did an 180 on this, and once I'm saying, look, there is no evidence of March 13th of any spaceships going over the city of Phoenix. There is no evidence of spaceships or crafts visiting this valley, because I've been on all the mountains around here, and all the carvings are the same. And also around the world, I get people sending me photographs of petroglyphs from all over the world, and it's really kind of scary too, because it all looks like it's been carved by the same artist, right? It all looks the same. It's all telling the same story. And are they talking about crafts and spaceships? No, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about living beings, living entities. And the Native Americans been telling us this whole time, look, they shapeshift, right? They change shape. And that's what these petroglyphs are depicting out there. Shapeshifters. Now, the archaeologist likes to call some of these petroglyphs anthropomorphs. They're morphing. They're changing shape. That's exactly what these beings in the sky do. They change shape, right? So, in my past shows, I talk about how, these orbs is just the beginning. These orbs will actually eventually morph. They will change. They would change into a snake. They would change into a man, what looks like a stick figure carving, if you will. They'll grow arms and legs, and I've actually filmed that over a South Mountain. I look it on my website. All my YouTube videos, on the description down below, you can see a link to my website. There you can find, the first park ranger, Charles Holberg. There you can find the real history of Phoenix, Arizona. And you can see the petroglyphs and how they're changing shape. And on that website, you can see a UFO sighting called Quetzalcoatl. And it's my wife and I, we're up there on South Mountain, and we see this light in the sky. And out from this light comes this being, this creature, this black creature comes out of this light in the sky above South Mountain. I'm on the camera. My wife has binoculars, and she's screaming, my God, it's a snake. It's a snake. She's freaking out. It's a snake. And yes, it was a flying snake that came out of this light above South Mountain. Look at the video. It comes out of the light. It goes across the sky, goes across above South Mountain, and then it shapeshifts into a man. Look at it. It shapeshifts into a man, and it looks like he's got what, two legs, his hand on his waist, and it looks like he's got two antennae on top of his head, and he's just cruising by, and then he disappears behind another mountain, another hill. That's exactly what these petroglyphs are depicting, the exact same thing that we saw in the sky that day. We see the stick figure man, and most of them have this belly, right? Have this orb in their belly. And a lot of myths on that orb, you can see it on my website. A lot of myths on that orb, on that circle, is the spirit is halfway in our world and halfway in the underworld. Well, watching these things and witnessing them firsthand and seeing them up close, I disagree with that. That belly in that, some people call the stick figure with the tail a lizard person, because that's the only thing they can really describe this petroglyph as, because it has a tail and he has this orb circle in his belly. Well, I think that orb is the beginning. That circle is the orb, is the UFO orb, is the light that we see in the skies today. And he's shape-shifting. He's morphing. He'll either morph into a snake, he'll morph into a man. And that tail is not a tail at all. All right. And I've talked about that tail in other past shows. I won't get into it tonight. But those other shows, I talk about what that tail really is. Not a tail at all. But they're anthropomorphing. They're changing shape. And so why do these UFOs hang out on certain places around the Earth? Why does these UFOs, light come into Phoenix? Well, like I said in the beginning, I followed these lights to the mountain. These lights led me to South Mountain. I followed them. That's exactly how the Hohokam Indians got here. They came from Mexico. A lot of these stories or myths or explanations on who the Hohokam people were, is they were part of Mexico, and they were the Mayans. And they followed the lights. They followed these lights to South Mountain. They called it Mount Sapoa, Mountain of Mercy. And all the tribes from all over the area used to gather right here on South Mountain in Phoenix. They used to watch the lights in the sky. They interacted with these beings in the sky. All of that is in past shows. Until one day they disappeared. And that's in past shows also on what happened to them. You can find out the information on my website also. So my point is, why South Mountain? Why have these lights and these things in the day, these day creatures, why South Mountain? What makes this mountain so special? Well, in 2004, when I'm filming the lights, these lights are right in front of me on the east side of South Mountain, always in this spot. They would appear, and then they would slowly move above this spot. And just this spot that they were hanging above just so happened to be a power plant, an electrical power plant that's bored down into the fault line of South Mountain. Those of you who are in Phoenix, you can look it up. It's on Ray Road. You can see that big fault line or the big power plant that's sitting there. Well, that's where those lights were hanging out at in 2004. And they probably go there all the time, but nobody is paying attention. I was paying attention. They knew I was watching them. They led me there. And then they led me to South Mountain. This has been going on for thousands of years. This is a pattern. And this is something that, I accidentally learned in my investigations, that it's a pattern. These things come during the equinox and during the solstice, and they come on different parts of the seasons, different parts of the month. This is why we see a lot of UFO activity on certain times of the month, and then they seem to be gone on other types of the month. And then after the changing of the sun in the sky, that aligns with these fault lines on these energy spots, that's when it attracts these beings to this energy source. I've always said that, man. These things are here for the energy because South Mountain was created by a fault line. And these fault lines generate energy. And that's exactly what these beings are after right now anyway. They have their past will someday be our future. And that's in other shows also. We won't get into that. What we are talking about is what these things are and why they're here. Well, a lot of people think they're from another world. No. Studying these things, understanding the petroglyphs and my many years of investigation, I came to the conclusion that this is their world too. They have always been here. Just as the oceanographers are finding new species of life below the ocean, this is a new species of life that the scientists and all these other people who know that they're here are failing to recognize and do not want to admit that these things are real. But we're seeing it more and more and more. Why is that? Why are we seeing it more and more? Look at the way the world's going today now, right? Look how things are escalating fast. Look how this world is going, man. No wonder these things are here. And right now they're just watchers. They're not going to make contact with us, not yet. It's not time yet. They know it's getting close. And they don't know the time when they will be needed once again by man. Because that's the story of the Hohokam Indians. When they first got here, they didn't know how to live. So these things came down from the sky, up out of the ground, shape-shifted and to look like people, and taught these people how to survive. They taught them the secret ways, the secret incantations, the secret knowledge in which man was not meant to know or understand. But yet these beings, these creatures, taught the Hohokam Indians all this secret knowledge. They just weren't some stupid people out there, man. These Hohokam Indians, man, they were highly intelligent. They were smart. They didn't live very long. But they were taught by these beings, and in return, they worship these beings as gods. And they perform sacrifice for these beings. You know, that's what the story is talking about, man, on these mountains out here. It's all, in my opinion, biblical. Okay, I don't know how you think about, you know, when I start talking about this biblical stuff. You know, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about this storybook of history. This book is actually the history of the world on where we come from, what these things are that we see in the skies today, our past, and our future, right? It's all in this book, and it tells us, man. It's been telling us for all these thousands of years. The evidence has always been there. It's just been overlooked and covered up. Oh, and they made South Mountain a government park. That's why I haven't dug anything up out there. I found at least 4 tombs out there. I have found 4 tombs that is something that is buried there on South Mountain. But yet, what they did is they made that mountain a government park. So you can't go in there and start digging up these tombs, because if you did, not only would you go to jail and have a huge fine, but you would uncover the true history of Phoenix, Arizona, and who knows what you're going to pull out of those things, man. Gold idols. I mean, the story talks about how the gold that's buried on South Mountain is as tall as the highest saguaro cactus and as round as the sun. You know, and that's a lot of gold. There's a lot of gold buried on South Mountain. And you know, we can only wonder on what else is buried there. I found a tomb with the petroglyph of what could be a giant that's buried there. So yeah, this is big stuff. This is a major discovery. And I don't think, you know, a part of the legend here on the Phoenix Lights and is that these lights are actually protecting the gold that's buried on South Mountain, because they know apparently the Mayans are going to come back and reclaim this gold. They're going to uncover all these tombs when the time is right, to have history start repeating itself again. That's one of the legends here. So just to be on the safe side, I think we should leave probably the majority of the tombs untouched, but I think we should at least open maybe one, maybe two of them, just to know. We have to know. This is where history is. This shouldn't be covered up away from us. It has been for the last 80 years. Because Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger in the early 1930s, he was told by the Native Americans in his day that there's gold tombs on South Mountain, what the carvings mean, what the sacrificing altars are mean. They were and Charles was chasing some of these gold finders off South Mountain, keeping away from these tombs out there. And so why would a park official, be convinced? And he found all this stuff. He even found so much other stuff that the government has destroyed since then. And unfortunately, he told the public this, and that's what kind of got things started. That's why he had to start chasing people off the mountain to keep people away from these tombs out there. And then when he passed away, when he died, the government just concealed all this information, right? They concealed everything that he accomplished, everything that he was doing, and it was really hard kind of finding this information. His son wrote a book. I don't know if it's still around today, but his son wrote a book on his dad's discoveries, and Charles Holbrook wrote this flyer. It's on my website. The lost city of Cibola. He thought that this city was one of the lost cities of gold. He was convinced that the Spanish conquistadors were here in this valley looking for the gold. And so, and the archaeologists today disregard that evidence. They claim that the Spanish conquistadors never made it that far into the valley, but they did, and I found evidence of that. And you can find all this stuff in my book that I'm getting ready to talk about here in a minute. You can find the photographs of stuff that we found up there, and Charles was convinced that the Spanish was here, and in the book I actually explain on one of the tombs that the Spanish used after the Hohokam. So all this information is there, and it wasn't covered up back in the 1930s up until the late 40s, when Charles Holbrook died. And then all that information was buried, was covered up, tucked away in a folder in the Phoenix Library for 80 years and not talked about. Even the archaeologist, he has to know about this stuff. Heck, him and his team spent 5 years up there on South Mountain documenting all this stuff. He had to have seen those tombs, right? He had to have seen those altars, right? He's not telling people about that. I am. I'm showing you photographs. All right, I'm showing you evidence, right? And I'm showing you what I dug up in the Phoenix Library that's been buried for 80 years. And if it wasn't for me, nobody to this day would know about this. It was my work that got this information started, and it's all there. It's all in the library. And I accidentally uncovered that. So I think that it's part of our history. It's part of our past. This information shouldn't be concealed the way it is. I understand the reasons why they don't want people to know about this. But the more and more I'm starting all of this. Okay, so eventually someone else is gonna call my bluff and start doing what I did, and maybe get some work done with this archaeologist, or maybe call out somebody from the ASU college, the archaeologist there. Someone's probably seeing this show right now and getting their team ready to go up on South Mountain. And we got to get the permits. All right, we got to get the we need to get permission to go out there and start excavating South Mountain because this is important. This shouldn't be covered up the way it is. I mean, there's so much evidence out there. This is the reason why they tell you to stay on the trails, because when you go off the trails, you find the evidence of what's really going on here in this city. You find the evidence of what these Phoenix Lights really is, and they don't want you to know that. They're covering this information up. I mean, I'm just lucky that they didn't, burn all this stuff, burn that folder that I discovered in the library. I'm still lucky that's still around, because like for that first year, when I'm doing these cable shows and I'm doing these news reports, I'm coming down from the mountain with all this evidence of altars and giants and crazy stuff, crazy ideas. But yet, it's just me saying this, and I'm thinking, dude, there's got to be more information out there. Why? I'm seeing it. It's there, How come nobody else in history is talking about this, right? Because this is just until a year later when I accidentally discovered it, a folder in the library, and boom, I open it up. There's Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger, and he's telling me everything that I discovered out there was correct. That was the heart of it. That was the evidence, right? And again, we're back to it. If you can't prove what you're talking about, you just shouldn't be talking, man. That's what I'm doing. I'm proving all this stuff to you. I'm giving you all this evidence, all these facts and data that I've discovered over the last, 15 to 20 years of this research. And the evidence is just overwhelming. And so, like I said, we just need more people to go up on South Mountain and excavate it. And we need to dig up at least one tomb. Okay, so holy cow, how long has this been going on? I've been babbling for an hour, and so I apologize about that. We haven't even got into the anything else. Okay, so let's talk about haunted encounter adventures. So my wife and I, we go out there and we investigate haunted locations around in Arizona and other places. And we take our ghost equipment and we go out there and we hunt the paranormal. So if you guys are into that, make sure you check out my YouTube channel, Haunted Encounter Adventures on YouTube, and find us on Facebook and tell us your ghost stories, and let's talk about ghosts. Okay, Haunted Encounter Adventures, check it out. Okay, here's my book, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs all over Phoenix. And so this is everything that I was pretty much talking within this last hour or whatever. I'm sorry about that. I hadn't even got into anything else. But yeah, this book right here, you can find it on eBay, Barnes & Noble, ebooks, stuff like that. And I don't make any money from this. I told the publishers to give my portion of the money to the foster kids in Phoenix. So it's not about money for me. It's about getting this information to you. And I didn't like ebooks because I wanted somebody I wanted people to actually hold the book in their hands. And it's color photographs of what I'm talking about. It explains on how to understand the petroglyphs, and it explains on who the Hohokam people were. And it's a history book basically. It's actually what history of Phoenix really was back in the day, told from the petroglyphs. Okay, it's a petroglyph story. It's stories written in stone. Okay, so it's a combination of half fictional character of John, but it takes the reader on a magical time journey, history type journey. It takes the reader into this whole different way of looking at Phoenix, Arizona, and what the Phoenix Lights is, and Hohokam Indians and the petroglyphs and all that jazz. It explains on what the interpretations really are, and like I said before, some people will understand the book, some people won't, and then other people will, finally understand years later. So, this book is pretty much, way ahead of its time. But it's a starting point. Okay, my information, my work, we got to get this started. I'm the first one to start this. Okay, I went out there, just on a hunch. I followed these UFOs to South Mountain, thinking that they're spaceships and crafts. And the more and more research and study and evidence that I found was telling me this is something completely different, right? Not what we are led to believe at all. And the history explains this, and that's exactly what this book is talking about. Okay. Now, Paulette Mendoza, just like what last week, captured a fleet of lights going over Cashion, Arizona. And to be honest with you, like, I'm a native and I've never heard of Cashion, Arizona. So I kind of had to look it up. And it's around the Avondale area, right? It's like 107th Avenue and stuff. So I I don't know. But that's where they said that they saw these lights at. They saw a fleet of lights over the Cashion, Arizona. But to me, that's more like Avondale area. So on the west side. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to show that video sighting. We're going to show other fleet sightings that has been, recorded over the years. And we're going to, talk about them. We're going to show them. There's one sighting that you guys haven't seen. Well, not only from them, but from also Canada that you guys probably hadn't seen also. My last episode, my last show I did last week, I was talking about the Brown Mountain lights in North Carolina and how these lights have been appearing. They call them ghost lights, for like hundreds of years. These people have been seeing these lights out there. And I was making a comparison to these lights that I've been seeing and filmed on South Mountain. No one has ever seen this before on South Mountain, or if they have, they mistake them for cars or bicycles. But being up on that mountain from the bottom to the top, from east to west, from south to north, and all over that mountain for many, many, many years. When I see something on that mountain, I know I've been there before, and I know that's not a trail, or I know cars aren't supposed to be up there, or I know that there's no way that bicycles could be up there with these lights, right? And so when I see a light up there, I was just there maybe last week, and I'm like, dude, there's no way that a light could be up there. So I was making the connection with the Brown Mountain lights to the South Mountain lights. And when I was preparing this show, going through my files, because I have hundreds and hundreds of UFO videos and thousands of photographs of petroglyphs and just so much history on South Mountain. When I was going through my files for the show, I found this. I completely forgot about this sighting that I filmed in 2006. Now, this is on the east side of South Mountain. All right, I'm looking towards South Mountain on the east side. And this is in 2006, 6:37. Okay, now look at these lights there. Look at that light. See that? Let's blow this up. That's night vision there. That's night vision. Now look how it just disappears. See? It blinks out. Okay? This is not normal. Right? There are no mountains, or excuse me, there are no trails up there. You see that? We don't see any trails at all up here. Right? This light is just magically appearing there on the mountain. Look, and then it disappears. It goes in South Mountain. It's going into that fault line. Right? Native Americans say that they're going down into the underworld, but on a scientific analysis, they're going out into these fault lines. They're absorbing the energy. Okay, that's exactly what these lights are doing. That's what the Phoenix lights, that's why they're hanging around South Mountain, is because when the sun aligns with these fault lines during the changing of the seasons, now it varies on what area you live at. So like if you live in Florida, the pattern is going to change over there. If you live in Israel, the pattern is going to change over there. So depending on what area you live at, will determine on how to predict or how to track these UFOs where you're at. So you must first, if you're gonna hunt UFOs, first thing I tell everybody, go out there and find the history of where you live at. find a mountain. Okay, if your mountains around where you live at have spirals, spirals represent doorways to the underworld. Okay, you see a bunch of spirals on a mountain, that is the source. That is where these things will eventually gather to. This is where they will come to. So you need to watch that mountain for a whole year. All right, sometimes maybe even 2 years. All right, just because you go out there once, you don't see anything. No, this is a very, very long, very time-consuming study. All right, and no one has taken the time to actually do this, but I did. All right, this takes many, many, many years of study. All right, to bring this information to you. All right, and so that first year, when I saw these lights, when I saw these things coming and going from the mountain, and then I noticed that there was a pattern to it, like the first couple months I saw a lot. After the equinox, there were like very few, maybe one, maybe two, maybe none at all. And then the seasons would change, and now they're back. Okay, that was all gravy. That was great that first year. The second year, watching that mountain, it repeated itself. All right, on the same months. On the same changing of the seasons. On the third year, it was the same. It was consistent. All right, that's why I'm saying this is a very, very long investigation on what I did here. This is how I discovered all this evidence here. It's because I did this. I did this for so many years. I just didn't go out there and say, oh, I didn't see anything, so I'm coming home. That's not how it works here. This is a very time and very you have to have a lot of patience, right? And some people see them right off the bat, but then they won't see them anymore. You have to hunt them down. I mean, it's just a long pattern. It's a long pattern, consisting pattern. A lot of time consuming. That's what I'm trying to say. And so this is in 2006. And I'm looking out my window here, on my second-story apartment window facing South Mountain, the east of South Mountain, and I'm seeing these lights. These lights are exactly what the Brown Mountain lights look like. What happened? Did it stop? Okay, no, it's still playing. And so I just wanted to share this with you because I completely forgot that I had this video because I've got so many UFO sightings. So it's hard to keep track on all of them. Now look, they're gone, right? I'm still recording, so I'm still waiting. And this is when the patients come in. All right. So, you just got to sit there and watch. That's what I did for years. All I did was sit in my kitchen, look out my window, look at that mountain. That's all I did. Have that camera ready because you never know when it was going to happen. Now those lights there on the bottom, I believe. Okay, yeah, that was a street light. Okay, did the video start over again? Yeah, the video started over. We're gonna watch it one more time, and then we'll get on to some of these new sightings here. Where's my other arrow? Oh. Look at that. See? That's night vision. That's when I turned it over to night vision. And it disappears. I don't know why I can't find my arrows. Okay. There it is. Look at that. See that? Is that amazing or what? This is not a car. Cars are not allowed up there on South Mountain in this area. This is the east side of South Mountain. There's no cars up there. And certainly you're not going to get a bicycle up there. And, if it was flashlights, how come we're not seeing if this was a flashlight, then we would see the beam of the light. We don't see no beams at all. Right? So if it's a flashlight, then it should be projecting a beam out. We should be able to see, the cactus, the trees, whatever is up there, but we don't. We just see this light. Okay? That is just magically appearing there. See that? Is that incredible or what? Look at that. Let's blow it up. See that? Look how it just disappears. I'm gonna rerun this. I'm gonna back it up. I'm gonna start from the beginning. Look at that. See how it just appears on the mountain, and it's not eliminating anything. If it's somebody up there with a flashlight, then we would be able to see on what they're trying to see, right? But we don't. We just see this light appearing on South Mountain, on the east side of South Mountain, and then disappearing. If you live in Phoenix, Arizona, watch South Mountain. This is very, very important because you are going to see some amazing things, all right? I was watching these things for many, many, many years. I was studying them. My knees are shot from climbing that mountain, jumping from one boulder to the next. Okay, so yeah, that mountain beat me up pretty good. But it was all worth it because, I'm bringing this evidence to you. Isn't that neat? Isn't that crazy cool? Okay, so if you guys live in Phoenix or anywhere else, in the world, where you have a sacred mountain, look for those spirals. The spirals are the keys, and the anthropomorphs. The anthropomorphs are these weird-looking, shape-shifting carvings up there, half animal, half person, or half bird, or just weird things, right? That is called an anthropomorph. That is called a spirit. To us, we call them UFOs. Now some people will call them UAPs. I think UAP is a better name for these things, and the government actually came out with that name, and I think they're trying to tell us something because they're not saying crafts, right? Not saying UFOs anymore because we're thinking spaceships and little green guys, but we're saying UAPs now, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? Not technology, okay? This is coming up. Hopefully, eventually, they'll admit to this. But remember, you heard it here first. And a lot of people has been saying this, but no one has actually proven this. I proved this. I'm just not saying this. I actually proved this, that these things are alive. Each light you see on the sky, each light you see on the mountain, that is a living creature, okay? All right. Let's get on with it. Just wanted to share that because I forgot about that. Okay. All right, so these lights here I filmed in Glendale. Okay? Oh, and before we get into that, let's just back this up just for a minute. I keep getting ahead of myself here because we need to talk about the petroglyphs. Let's talk about these petroglyphs here. Okay, so we all know about the 1997 Phoenix lights, right? And there's the rock art. This exactly looks like the exact same formation that the 97 Phoenix lights occurred at on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona, on the west side of South Mountain. Now, I accidentally discovered this petroglyph coming down from the mountain on my way home. So I was up on a high ridge, and I didn't want to go all the way back where I came from. So I started heading down to the parking lot area, to where to get off the mountain. I just started headed down. And when I did, I found this boulder, okay? And it's the exact same thing as we saw in 1997, okay? Now, the archaeologist wants us to say, well, that's the changing of the moon cycles. Well, I'm sorry, that's a little bit more dots than the moon. Too many dots there to be the moon phases. All right, look at this. This is a prehistoric UFO sighting of what the holocoms saw, and they saw the exact same formation in the sky. All right, so this is a testimony of what took place right here on this mountain. The Holcomb Indians, they saw this, and then 1,000 years later, maybe 1,500 years later, we saw the same spread in March of 97. Okay, so is this a coincidence? No. This is where the facts lie at. This is where all the evidence, this is where credible evidence is. So we see the things for ourselves in the sky. We read, that's one. We read some of these things in these like biblical scrolls and Anunnaki texts and and Sumerian texts and all these other so-called folklore, archaeology, sayings or whatever, right? We read all that testimony. Then we come out to the rocks, and then we see the exact same thing on what they're talking about in these scrolls, and we witness the exact same thing in the sky. You see the connection here? You see the credibility here? It's not someone coming in from another state saying, oh, a spaceship went over the valley, so let's make money from it. And there's no evidence of this. They're not doing their homework. They're not climbing the mountain. They're not studying them. They're not hunting them down. They're not following them, right? They're not making any other videos, right? They're not seeing them no more. They want you to believe something that's, in my information, disinformation. In my understanding of all this, in my way of looking at this, what they're doing, this is wrong. This is disinformation of what really occurred that night. They're misleading you, probably because they just don't know. So they just, want to get up on a soapbox. They want to make money for themselves. They want to get on TV. They want to make movies. They want to become famous. They're not doing their homework. They're not doing any research. Right? And that's what upsets me a lot, because someone who has credible evidence, such as I, who proves everything, they don't want to listen to, right? Isn't that funny? That's how it goes. It's a big, I don't know. I won't go there. Okay, so here's a fleet of sightings. March 13th, 1997, right here, folks. Okay, the whole comm Indian saw that. It's on the front cover of my book, man. All right, so, okay, now we have that carving. Now we have another carving of a fleet, a UFO fleet. I guess we could call it that. Let's move the 1997s over here for a minute. All right, this is on South. All these petroglyphs are on South Mountain. Now here you can see how people came in and destroyed the story. I don't know if they decided just to take it home, but all this right here is all chiseled out, and we see a lot of these chiseled out panels like on Egypt. The walls of Egypt, where they don't want you to know that story, so they purposely take it out. It's exactly what happened here. They totally erased this story. They took it out, but they left just a little bit of information. They left the UFO sighting here, or the UAP sighting here, because we have all these fleets here. We have a whole bunch of orbs, right? Let's blow it up a little bit more. And you can see the dots in the middle. Now, my past show, I talk about that dot in the middle. All right, and it's the exact same type of dot that we see in the skies today. When we go back and we analyze our videos, and when we go back and we look on the videos of what we shot, what we filmed, we can see these little dots in the middle of these lights, right? And you can see the fleet here. There's a whole bunch of fleets, right? So these fleets is nothing new. It has been recorded before. All right, we'll just take that out. Let's just remove it. Bye-bye. All right, now let's look at another one. And again, some of the story has been chiseled away, but this right here has been all chiseled away. They don't want you to see that story. They took it out. But they left another fleet of UFO sightings. Look, see? And the dot. See that? The orb with the dot in the middle. See that? And then we have the orbs with the dot in the middle. All right, fleet. We call that a fleet sighting. There's a fleet UFO sighting, right? Because there's many of them in the sky at once, so we call those a fleet. And here we can see that the whole comms, they saw these fleets also because they recorded their sightings here on South Mountain. All right. I guess we don't need South Mountain anymore, but this is, March 13th. But that is just so, when I first found that, I was like, dude, all the evidence, all this, credible evidence is on South Mountain and has been overlooked all these years. And it just amazed me on how no one was looking into this. No one's looking into the history. No one's connecting the petroglyphs to the things that we see in the skies before. No one is doing this. Why? Why? They just didn't have this type of evidence, I guess. They didn't know, right? They didn't look into it. All right. They're just coming in and saying this is what they are. All right. And everybody wants to believe them, but they don't have anything to prove. They don't have nothing to back it up with. Okay. Now, this is what we filmed in Glendale. Okay. Let's go ahead and play this. Some of you know this sighting. I filmed this in Glendale, Arizona. Here we have a fleet. Now, this is in, and they're moving. This is in the city. This is not by the South Mountain. I filmed this on, 67th Avenue and Olive. Okay? Those of you who live in Phoenix. All right? We saw this in 2019. Okay? And so a lot of people say, oh, they're Chinese lanterns, right? Well, Chinese lanterns don't last that long, and look how they're staying in formation. Okay, these things aren't moving away from each other. They're not drifting apart from each other. Okay, and that's the conspiracy now. That's what everybody thinks. That, oh, they must be Chinese lanterns. Well, they're not. Okay, these things are. Look at that. And if they were, the camera would have picked up on that. Okay, I mean these things were so close. All right, so I filmed Chinese lanterns before, and you can see the fire. You can see that it's a lantern, okay? All right, and but this is not a lantern, okay? Look at this. And they kept coming and coming. Look, see, there's more. These are not Chinese lanterns. These are not fireworks. These are not flares, all right? Airplanes dropping these things out, no. These things are unexplainable lights, okay? And they're heading towards South Mountain. They're coming from the north, just like what we're going to be talking about later on in the show. They're coming from the north, and they're heading south. Look at that. Is that incredible or what? Look at these things. Look at that. And look at how their information. Look at it. They're not drifting away from each other, okay? All right, so Chinese lanterns would drift away. All right, no, they're staying in formation. All right, Chinese lanterns and balloons and flares do not act like this. Okay? Absolutely not. Look at that. See that? They're going over my apartments. Here comes another one. Look at that. There's still information. All right. Is that incredible or what? Look at that. Look how they're staying in line with each other. Okay. They're not drifting apart. Look at that. Oh, stop. Boop. Let's back that up just a few minutes here. Okay. We're going to stop it just for a minute. Once I get it. There it is. So, a lot of people see this triangle formation, okay? They see this triangle formation, and they say, oh, it's a TR-3B, or it's a craft, right? Because they think that there's some invisible craft in this pyramid, right, in this triangle. They think that they assume, right, that this is a spaceship, right? Absolutely not. That is not correct. Each light is a living creature, okay? And for reasons unknown yet, we're still trying to figure this out. They fly information, all right? They fly information. Sometimes, they look like pyramids in the sky. I've filmed many pyramids in the sky. Doesn't make that a ship, okay? Doesn't make that a cloak ship, okay? There's 3 lights out there, and they just so happen to be in a pyramid formation. It doesn't mean that they're spaceships. And they're moving together, and that's another thing. It's got to be a craft because they're moving together. Well, that's just, That's one thing. They're moving together. Okay, so we can rule out flares. We can rule out man-made stuff like flares or fireworks or Chinese lanterns because they're moving together, right? They're moving together, right? They don't do that. Flares and lanterns and stuff like that, they drift apart. They don't last that long. The flame inside the lantern does not last that long. But look how long these things are lasting. And look how it's changing color there. It went from red to white. All right, so Chinese lanterns do not do this. It's going right over my apartment there. This is in 2019. Look at that. Let's just back this up. Let's watch this one more time from the beginning. See that? Look how many of them were. And you can see the telephone wires there. Let's back this up. Is that crazy? Look at that. Look at this. Is that amazing or what? And they're moving together, like I always say. They're not drifting apart. They're information, right? They're moving together, right? Look at that. Here comes another one. Boop, let's stop it. Doot, doot. And you know, the camera would totally pick that up. Okay, if it was anything that the camera could recognize. And that's another thing with some of these, these cameras is we're dealing with something that is not normal to the camera eye. So the camera knows how to focus on, a truck, knows how to focus on a Chinese lantern, knows how to focus on a balloon, knows how to focus. It recognizes what it's looking at. But these entities, these creatures, sometimes the camera is not going to recognize what it's looking at. So it's going to come out of focus. And that's why a lot of people, oh, here we go with another blurred out UFO video. Well, they just don't understand because they haven't been doing this for years, right? So they don't understand that some of these cameras, it's not really the camera's fault. It's the entity, right? The entity is changing. It's like got this plasma around it or some kind of energy field or something that the camera just cannot focus on. Okay? All right. Now, let's talk about the one that happened in Tucson, Arizona, 2 weeks ago? This happened in Tucson, Arizona. Let's play this. Look at this. Now, that is crazy, right? That is a great, great sighting. Look at that. Is that crazy or what? And again, if these were, and look, some of them are in a parachute, in a pyramid. If these were Chinese lanterns of any source, then they would drift apart from each other. They would not stay in formation. Okay, and if you watch closely, some of them move away from each other. Like, look, see these two? Look at that. Look how close they are. All right, now study them, and look, they're coming out of this hill. See that? They're coming out of this hill over there. Now look what look what they're doing here. Examine them. They're staying in formation. Is that a great sighting or what? This happened in Tucson a few months ago. Excuse me, a few weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago. Is that crazy or what? And it looks like, see, there's another one leaving right there. And if they were Chinese lanterns, they would have burned out long ago. They would not last this long. Now, I'm not sure where I saw it at, but somewhere in this sighting, I saw one light going away from another light and another light moving. Like they're moving in like opposite directions of each other. Look at that. Is that crazy or what? Okay. Now, let's look at what happened in Canada. Let's put this aside over here. Let's look at Canada. This happened in Canada. I'm not sure when, but look at this. The exact same type of lights, right? Look at that. Reminds me of the 1997 Phoenix lights, doesn't it? See that? Look at that. I paused it, so I paused it just to get a look at them. But isn't that crazy? Look at that. This is in Canada. So the Phoenix lights just isn't in Phoenix. It's all over the world. It's in Canada. It's in Tucson. It's in North Carolina. They're in Israel. They're in Texas. The Mafia lights. This stuff has been going on for thousands of years. And, I just can't believe some of these explanations, they're flares, they're Chinese lanterns, all this stuff. And because, they've been, kind of brainwashed into thinking, we need to be looking for spaceships. We need to be looking for crafts. Okay, so when we see this type of stuff, we automatically dismiss it because we were brainwashed into thinking of something else on what we're supposed to be looking for. We're supposed to be looking for spaceships, right? And all these hoaxers out there filming these crafts for YouTube money and stuff like that, for you to click on that thing so they get paid, that's crazy. That's just BS. They're concocting these spaceships out of CGI and they're making you believe that these are real when they're not. And the real stuff has been overlooked. The real stuff is neglected. Okay, and this is what I'm doing here. I'm bringing the real stuff to you. I know it's real because I've witnessed it. Okay, I know what CGI is. I understand what I can spot a CGI film a mile away. I know it's real because I've seen them firsthand. I've seen so much stuff that the public hasn't seen yet. Right, so when I see a UFO video, I know if it's a plane or not. I know if it's a flare or not. I know if it's something supernatural. I know, if it's unexplained or if it's explainable because I've done my history. I've done my homework. I have gone out. I have filmed flares in the sky just to see what they look like in the sky so I can make a comparison on what UFOs look like compared to flares. I have filmed balloons in the sky because just to make the comparison on what balloons look like on film and what these things that are not UFO, not balloons look like on film. I make the comparison. I have filmed lights or I've filmed airplanes in the sky to make the comparison on what real UFO lights look like. I have filmed balloons and lights and all these things in the sky because you have to train your eye. So when you see a video, you know exactly what it is because you went out there and you discovered this, right? Or you experienced it. That's what I was looking for. You experienced it. You've seen it. You filmed it. You saw it come back. You've looked at it on your computer. You looked at it on your television. You know what it is, right? And so I get all these sightings of, planes or drones. And one of the things that really, gets to me are these flickering lights, these blinking lights. Now, airplanes have these anti-collision lights on them, and they blink in a pattern. So if you see something going across the sky and it blinks in a pattern, that is man-made. That is not a UFO, all right? It's blinking in a pattern, all right? But if it's comes on, then goes off, right? And then comes on, then goes off. If it's not in a pattern, then that could be a real UFO sighting. But something that's blinking repetitiously, that is not a craft. That is not a UFO. That's a drone. That's a helicopter. That's an airplane. They have anti-collision lights. All right. So remember that when someone's trying to hand you a UFO video, trying to say that it's real, but it's blinking, right? It's an airplane, man, blinking red and green. Look how these lights aren't, right? Not blinking. See that? This happened in Canada. I'm not really sure when. Okay, now let's look at what happened a few days ago, right? So this is January 20th, 2022. And wow, I got so much going on here. Okay. Excuse me for just a second. Okay. A friend of mine got in contact with Paulette Mendoza, right? And they live in Phoenix, okay? And they wanted to know if anybody had saw this also in the sky. Let's play this. Now, it was telling me that this happened in Cashoun, Arizona. Now, I've never heard of that before, so I had to actually look it up, and I found out that it was more around the Avondale area. But let me read you what they say about what. Let me read you what they wrote me. Okay, Jeff, I am still this morning in awe of what I saw. Oh my God. It lit up the whole sky. Bright orange light. They were like so big, and some blinked bright red. Oh my God. I'm so excited I witnessed this. This was in Cashoun, Arizona, about 7:30 p.m. They came from the north somewhere, I think, but they just disappeared right before my eyes into the sky. I happened to walk out at the same time, and they were hovering over us. It was pretty cool. I was on, let's say, 107th Avenue and Buckeye Road. Can you tell me where they disappeared at, though? Okay, now let me open this one up. We'll get to that here in a minute. Yeah, they came from the north, and I know that that much they were flying fast from the north, and they circled around like into a half circle, and then they disappeared into the sky. I get in nobody. Everybody. I kept asking him if anybody's seen that, and nobody's telling me that they've seen it, but I got it on video. I got proof of what I see. I'm so excited about this. I don't know. I don't know. Can I make some money off of this? No. Unfortunately, there is no money in UFO sightings. Only this is the reason why there's so many people out there. That's exactly what's going on with the 1997 Phoenix Lights. Okay, is they want to make profit off of this. All right, so they make this Harkins movie. They make this Harkins movie film. All right, and they show it every year. And they write this book, right? And they get on these platforms and make the news and stuff like that, selling this book and selling this money or selling this movie, all right, with no information at all on what they are, where they come from, who saw them first, anything like that. Or they don't even tell you who originally filmed this, all right, because it'll backtrack on what really happened that night. So they're just gonna come in and they're gonna say, yeah, the spaceship went over the city to make money. All right, that's exactly what's going on here, because there is no money in UFOs unless you exploit them. You write a book and try to make money off your books, stuff like that. There is no money in UFOs. So yeah. Okay. So, and I was telling them, I was like, look, you really need to go to the news, try to see if anybody else saw this in the news. And that's exactly what I also did with the last sighting that happened in Tucson. I contacted the news on Facebook, and nobody wants to tell me anything. So, and I'll tell you the reason why here in a minute. I was like, maybe you should, ask the news if anybody saw what you saw, to, see maybe if you can make the news, right, and get your video out there to see if anybody else saw this, right? And he says, yeah, well, so when I talked to Channel 10 News, And then when somebody answered a physical person answered the phone, they said, "Oh, how can I help you?" And I asked them I asked them if I wanted to know if anyone else had seen what I saw in the sky. And the lady goes, "Please hold on," then hung up on me. And the next time I called back, it went to a voicemail, and I had to leave a message. So, yeah, you know what happened? I really think, unfortunately, I could be the cause of this because everybody was like making the news, right? 1997, 98, 99, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, right? All this stuff. Everyone who's seeing the UFOs are taking this stuff to the news, and the news is broadcasting this. It was like a frenzy here. It was a big thing back in the day, or like what? How long has it been now? It's been like over 10 years, and so everybody was making the news. Well, once my book was published, here's what I think. Once my book was published, I took that to Channel 15. And Channel 15, Channel 10, Channel 3, all the news media is all connected together, right? And they're all told on what to broadcast, what not to broadcast. We already know that. And so when my book came out, exposing the tombs, exposing the giants, exposing the gold, exposing the real history of Phoenix, exposing what the lights are talking about through the eyes of the Hohokam people from what they carved on the mountains around Phoenix, getting the archaeologists involved. And now my book comes out with physical proof, photographs. What's on South Mountain? They buried it. They're buried. They do not talk about UFOs anymore. Is that interesting? I haven't seen a new UFO case on the City of Phoenix News or anywhere else for that matter, around this area in years. They stopped talking about UFOs. And I really think it has something to do with my book. Because I uncovered something that was meant to be buried 80 years ago. And so they're not talking about this anymore. But you did a great, great, great job on filming this, and I highly applaud you. You did a spectacular job on filming this. You did a great, great job. You were quick. You knew to get your camera out, right? So like the first time I seen these things, I was frozen because I'm looking at this thing, right? And I can't understand what I'm looking at. I'm not thinking about getting a camera. I'm not thinking about getting a witness, to help me out with this, I'm just trying to figure out what the hell's in the sky, dude, But you were smart. You grabbed your camera. You knew exactly to start filming these things, and I applaud you. And that's what we need to do. And so I tell people, it's probably better if you're going to go UFO hunting, it's probably better to get you a nice digital video camera and film these things on, because sometimes cell phones, they don't give you the right estimate on how far it was. You can't zoom in very good. There's a lot of downgrades to cell phone use with filming UFO videos. You did a great job on this. Don't get me wrong. But it's better if you have a video camera with you, and I take a video camera with me everywhere I go. It's always in the car with me. It's in a bag. I always have a camera with me because you never know when these things are going to appear. So you want to be ready. So yeah, try to. Oh, also you want to get a video camera with a viewfinder, right? Because the cameras with the side window, and during the day, especially during the day when you're trying to film a UFO in the sky with the camera window, there's so much glare you can't see it. You'll see it for your own eyes, but the camera won't see it because of the glare. So I always suggest that you get a video camera with a viewfinder, and then you can zero in on the thing, and there is no light to distract you from seeing that. So grab yourself a video camera with a viewfinder, and yeah. Great job. Awesome job. Okay, so the question was, it was coming from the north, right? And they wanted to know where they were going to. Okay, so let's pause this and let's look at this. Let's look at something real quick. Let's see if I can find it. There's so much things going on. Okay, here we go. So here is a Google Earth on the area where they filmed it at. Okay, so let me get my arrow. All right, so right here is what, 107th Avenue. So that's that's more like maybe like Glendale, far off Glendale. Like I said before, more like Avondale area. So yeah. Okay, so right in here is where they said that they were at when they filmed it. Now, let's go ahead and play this. Let's take a look at the surroundings here. So South Mountain is this way. North is up top here. North is top, south is bottom. All right, so now we're zooming way out. Now, right here, let's stop the video. Okay, here we go. Here it comes into play. All right, stop. Okay, so this mountain here, this is the Australia Mountains, right? This is where you were when you were filming it. This is the Australia Mountains. This is South Mountain. All right, so the Australia Mountains it's called, the Australia is Spanish for Star Mountain. Isn't that interesting? And this is actually located on an Indian reservation. All right, so, and you're here, right? And they're coming, let's see if I can find my other arrow real quick. They're coming from up here, right? You said that they're coming from the north, right? So they're coming this way, and they're heading towards the Australia Mountain. Now let's go ahead and push play. Okay, yeah, so there's the Australia, and there's South Mountain. There's the Australia. All right. And then up here are the North Mountains, way up here. Okay? So it's my opinion, if they're coming from the north, then they're coming out of these fault lines here, these mountains here. You see that? So it's just one explanation. Like, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, so this is just my guess on it. But if, who knows how far they were traveling, before you saw that. So if they came out of the North Mountains, then they were heading towards the Australia Mountains, and they probably disappeared. They probably disappeared in the Australia Mountains, but it's hard to say also. They probably just disappeared in a doorway or a vortex in the sky. So that's when these spirals come into play, right? These carvings of the spirals. So the spirals on the mountain, if a spiral is going clockwise, it's a doorway in. If a spiral is going counterclockwise, then it's a doorway out. If the spiral is ending down, then that means that there's a doorway either on the ground there, or 9 times out of 10, that spiral will end at a crack in the stone. And that crack in the stone is the emergence point, is the doorway to the underworld, to where the energy is, to the fault line. Now, if the spiral is ending up, that means there's a vortex in the sky. There's a door in the sky. Matter of fact, that's what these spirals represent, is a tunnel. You're looking into a tunnel into another dimension, another world, another plane of existence. That is what these spirals represent. It's a symbol on where the location of a doorway can be found. So the spiral ending up, there's a doorway in the sky. So it's very possible that when he said those lights just disappeared in front of you, that there's a vortex up there. So it disappeared into a vortex. I'm sure probably way back in the day before the houses were built and everything, there's probably a boulder there. There were some mountains there. Who knows what? But I'm sure somewhere around there would have been a spiral right in that area depicting a doorway in the sky. Okay? Or they headed that far and disappeared into the Australia Mountains. But you said that they disappeared right in front of you. So probably not. They probably didn't make it that far. So they probably disappeared they went into a doorway. Just like what I was talking about with this light above South Mountain, and this serpent came out of the light. It came out of that vortex doorway. It came out of a porthole above South Mountain. It came out of an energy spot. All right. It came out of that area. So hopefully that kind of, maybe helped you out a little bit on, where they went, where they came from. I would keep an eye out. 9 times out of 10, when there's like a big sighting like that, when there's like a lot of a fleet sighting, and someone films it or something, you probably won't see anything for a while. But I wouldn't give up. I would keep watching, keep looking, make sure you have your camera ready, because they showed up once, they're going to show up again, but who knows how long it's going to take them to reappear over there, especially if it's not by a mountain. If you're by the source, yeah, you're going to pick it up real quick. You're going to, you watch the mountain for a couple years, you're going to discover its pattern. You're going to know that mountain is active, and you're going to discover the pattern, and you're going to be able to understand when they will be there and when they're not going to be there. And this takes a lot of years. You have to watch that mountain for a number of years, at least 2 years. 2 years of watching that mountain to actually make sure that mountain is not active. What I mean by active is the UFOs are not coming to that mountain yet. They used to go there because there's spirals on there. Native Americans are talking about, they're telling you that, the spirals there, there's anthropomorphs, there's, so that is a sacred mountain. But is that mountain active or not? Is the UFO still going there? And that takes many, many years of watching to understand. You just can't go out there and, I didn't see anything, so the mountain's not active. No, you need to keep going out there for at least 2 years. It's exactly what I did. I was out there, over 3 years. And I verified all of that on South Mountain. But yeah, mountains are the key. But then again, we have these spiral doorways that are in the sky that are the emergence point, or a gateway. And when I discovered an old map from the first pioneers of Phoenix, Arizona, they documented all the Holcomb canals. They also documented where all the Indian structures were found at, and a lot of them, I learned that a lot of these structures around the valley were right under vortexes in the sky. So they strategically built their buildings, their hogans, their structures, their adobe houses in areas around Phoenix where these UFOs would come and go from in the sky. So in the valley, we see like the canals, and then we see like a little Hohokam village. Well, that village is there because of a reason, not just because it's a nice place to live. It's because it's under a vortex door. Remember earlier when I was talking about that power plant on the east side of South Mountain, how it's bored down into that fault line? Well, that map showed many, that was the heart of the Hohokam city, was right there where that power plant sits today. So the whole city, the whole area of the Hohokam lived right there under that vortex door, because they wanted to get as close as they could to their gods. They wanted to see their gods. When their gods came in from another dimension, from another world, from wherever they come through that door, they want to be there to see him. So that's why they lived right under those doors. And then a lot of them lived on the mountain. There's so many evidence of Hohokam canals on South Mountain and adobe structures on South Mountain, and it's in strategic places where these UFOs would come and go from. Absolutely. Okay, so let's and you can talk to Paulette Mendoza on Facebook, and you can get more information and find out, exactly, what they saw, how they saw, and it's just so great that you filmed that. And I want to give you a thumbs up for that. And keep watching. If you see any more, please let me know, man. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's end the show on showing all of these UFO sightings together. All of these fleet sightings together. Let's end the show that way. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? So this has been going on, for thousands of years. And um, and this is great. I just love it. Just so much proof and evidence, on what these things are, and that these things have always been with us. And the sightings are continuous. I mean, it just didn't happen, back in the day. It is still going on today. And so thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Find me on YouTube. Make sure it says The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. There's a lot of people out there trying to be me and making false pages. So make sure you find The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Subscribe to that channel. Check out my ghost channel, Haunted Encounter Adventures. Find me on YouTube. Contact me on YouTube. And if you guys film any UFO sightings, please send them to me, and let's talk about it. And again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.